This is Content Marketing World Europe 365, Episode 1 on storytelling. Let's go! Though marketeers from across Europe, people are registered from Greece to Finland, from Portugal and Spain, right through France and Belgium to the Netherlands to the UK. This is a European gathering on content marketing. And it's great to see so many of you and hear so many of you. And it's great to really create this Content Marketing World Europe experience. Content Marketing World Europe 365. And of course the 365 stands for that today we launch a continuous program, not only around the event. You may have seen from the first shot a few balloons here in the studio to celebrate the birth of this series, and this is the first one, and we have a bi-weekly frequency here with a different topic on each session, and in each session you will have a recorded breakout session from Content Marketing World in Cleveland, and then followed by a live deep dive with experts on a topic. And that is a live deep dive and a total session for 1 hour and 15 minutes. So we have plenty of time and plenty of information and inspiration to work on together. So moving to the topic of today, storytelling. I mean, once upon a time, Daddy, do you have one more story before I go to sleep? Or 3 marketeers walk into a bar. We all know the concept of storytelling, and we all love listening to stories and telling stories. And still, as marketeers, we somehow, or many of us, have that love-hate relationship because we struggle about how to use it and how to create it. And today we really want to answer a maximum of how-to questions on how to use storytelling, how to work with storytelling, how to start with it, how to set it internally. And talking about questions, of course, in this Zoom webinar, you can type your questions in the Q&A channel, and then we'll retrieve that later through this session and try to get the answers from our 2 experts. 2 experts. And with that, I'm really happy to announce and invite on screen Carlijn, Postma and Sonja, Nisson. And I guess for many of you, those are names that you have heard before, maybe even people that you met before. Sonja Nisson from Bristol in the UK, an expert, an author. She actually wrote the first UK book on content marketing called Valuable Content Marketing. And why is there valuable in content marketing? But at that time, probably we needed to add it. And that resulted in founding the School of Valuable Content. And Carlijn Postma from the Netherlands, founder of the content marketing agency The Post, author of several marketing books. And the last one is called Binge Marketing, which is going to be a new type of marketing. And she will tell about that. Welcome, both of you. How are you doing?
Oh, thank you. I'm good. Happy
Ready
to be
for
here.
a new year?
Yeah.
Yes, definitely ready.
Absolutely. Let's make this an exciting year. We're going to talk about storytelling. Let me start with one question to both of you. What made you fall in love with storytelling?
Carlijn, do you want
Who's
to go
first? Jump in.
Made me fall in love. I think made me addicted to is a better word.
To that point.
Because of course, storytelling, you started with it. Mom, tell me another story. It's from the early days already. But I think the last couple of years, 5, 6, 7 years, that when Netflix arrived, I just got addicted to stories. And,
Okay, really.
Yeah.
And for you, Sonja, storytelling?
He's Danish actually, and
I think there's a little issue with your microphone. We're going to check that.
okay.
Yeah, you're back again. Okay. Well, it looks like we're going to work on that. It looks like we lost your sound. Let me get this back on this side. For everyone in the audience, the program today for the next hour and 15 minutes basically consists of two parts. The first is a recorded session from Content Marketing World Cleveland, and then we're going into the live deep dive. So with that, let's move if the AV team is ready as well to prepare to watch that pre-recorded session. And actually it is something very special on two factors. The first one is that it's not a presentation about storytelling. Basically, it's a demonstration how we can use storytelling to convey a message, to teach something. And the second is that actually it is a Content Marketing World Cleveland presentation by one of our live experts for today, namely Carlijn. I mean, Carlijn, that was your second turn speaking in Cleveland, I think.
It was my third, but
third already.
Two times virtual.
That's
so,
it.
Yeah.
Okay, so and as you will all see, it is a real special format where normally if we would say, okay, we're going to watch a recorded breakout session from Content Marketing World, you would expect someone on stage, and this is completely different. And with that, I'm going to ask the AV team to prepare that video, and wish you a lot of pleasure and inspiration to watch that as a first step towards the live deep dive that we will start here in 20 minutes. Enjoy.
Hello? Hello? Anybody there? Hello? Can you hear me? Okay, I'll try again later. It all started back in 2022, right after the cookie crisis. The year we now remember as the moment audiences regained their power of choice. I just started out as an investigator at the Federal Bureau of Audience Concerns. I've always been an advocate of sustainable marketing, empowering marketeers to invest in a good story and create evergreens for their marketing strategy. The cookie crisis shook the world of marketing to its core, but it brought me closer to my goal: to stop the stream of unwanted, single-used, disposable content. But unfortunately, some marketeers still close their eyes to it. Like marketing strategist Mark Connor. Are you Mark J. Connor, occupation marketing strategist?
Who wants to know?
I'm an investigator at the Federal Bureau of Audience Concerns. But the question you should ask yourself is how you got into this mess. You were brought in here for questioning on the suspicion of creating single-use, disposable content and distributing it without the consent of your audience.
What Federal Bureau is this again?
This is the Federal Bureau of Audience Concerns, established in 2022 to protect the audience from unwanted targeting with single-use, disposable content.
What does that even mean?
Well, Mark, it means that you're in big shit. But, you know, I don't think I can really blame you, can I? Because, well, as a marketer, you were educated in a world with endless opportunities for marketers to stalk their audiences. The only thing you needed was one click on your website, and then you had them. You could just follow them all over their social lives for the rest of eternity.
Yeah, sure, but then we lost all that data because of the privacy regulations. I mean, we're talking history here.
Well, let me explain what I think happened. I think that you knew perfectly well that you had to invest in building your own audience. Audiences that choose to connect with you, that like your brand and your content. But you also knew that it could take a a really long time to build.
Recording in progress.
Like the godfather of content marketing, Joe Pulizzi, once said, it could take up to 18 months to build a decent audience. But you didn't have that time because you had to deliver on your sales targets. And we all know that 18 months don't fit in Q1. So, what did you do? You started to create more campaigns. And as a result, a larger part of your budget was needed for paid media to meet your sales targets. And you did. So, everybody happy, you think?
Just doing my job, lady.
Are you? What you're doing is spending precious time and money on single-use disposable content.
What disposable content?
Single-use disposable content is content that is created to last for 1 day, 1 week, or 1 campaign. And the way I see it, you are guilty of that charge.
Well, you've got me, Inspector. Guilty as charged. I created some disposables. So what? I mean, people still buying our products. I met my sales targets. What's the problem?
What about the time and the money that your team and the agencies you work with are wasting to create these disposables? Let alone the money that is needed to distribute it to your audiences, repeatedly. Only because you lack to invest in quality content that your audience really wants. You lack to invest in a real story, and so you ended up with creating single-use waste.
My sales went up 7%, and our brand awareness increased from 67 to 72%. I honestly don't see the crime here. You can only say that marketing costs money. So, yes, I'm guilty of spending money on marketing.
It is my job to investigate unwanted targeting and content waste. Do you remember those plastic grocery bags? We carried them home and we threw them away.
What's your point?
Well, maybe you remember those large number of plastics that we used for takeaway food during the lockdowns 5 years ago. People carried it home, put it on a real plate, and threw the packages away, thinking they were gone. But were they really gone? Or are they still floating around somewhere in our subsidized waste system? Or even worse, in the ocean?
Can I have some water, please?
Did you bring your own bottle?
You're gonna charge me for that too? Of course I have.
You know, your disposable content is just like that plastic bag. Aimlessly floating around in the far reaches of the internet. Because nobody's interested anymore. And that content is still consuming energy. Waiting for the next content audit and its verdict. Reuse, recycle, or permanently delete. But what if you had invested in a story as good as a television series instead of creating single-use disposable content? You would have had several timeless seasons by now with relevant episodes. And that's what you're holding. That is evergreen content.
But our campaigns are based on customer needs. I mean, they're always relevant.
Funny thing, relevance. Things always seem relevant at the time they are made. But if you had followed the audience journey, then you would have known that relevance is always subjective, it's time-related and very, very personal. The only thing you had to do is be ready with the right content at the right moment and the right place.
Oh, pretty words, but I mean, I can't just sit and wait for them to come to me. I have to deliver on my targets.
But what if you had invested in sustainable serial content ever since 2022? You would have had at least 4 seasons with multiple episodes of evergreen content, all relevant. Which means season 1 still attracts new audiences, ready to binge all your content.
Binge. I think I heard that word before. A couple of years ago, the Content Marketing World Conference. Binge marketing is what they call it.
That's right. Let me refresh your memory. Can you please read this for me?
Binge marketing is a sustainable marketing strategy that allows you to build a long-term relationship with your audience through the use of serial content based on the shared interests of your audience and your brand. This earns you the trust of your audience and allows you to lay the foundations for achieving your marketing goals.
Mark, what if you had invested in a sustainable marketing strategy? What if you had put in the effort to create a long-term relationship with your audiences? And what if you would have created content that was based on the shared interests of your brand and your audiences?
Well,
You kept on focusing on the short-term KPIs, and that's why you're in this mess, Mark. Because you were deliberately creating single-use, disposable content that only benefited you.
What?
Oh, don't worry, Mark. We'll get you and your audiences out of this mess.
Window pane with endless
Wait!
views and hunger and reflection. Shiny lens flares round the sky high, haziness in Brooklyn. It looks like maybe it's the first real sunny day in ages. My eyes can catch the light. I'm in heaven. Seems that I've been living in another world. The blur is gone. I've opened up my eyes to the world inside.
Hello? Anybody? Can you hear me? Can you see me? Yeah, yes! You can see me, can't you? Oh, wow, this is great. A real working wormhole. Wow. Oh, oops, steady. Steady. Okay. Oh, hi everyone. I'm from the future and I've got a message for you. But I have to be quick because this wormhole will implode in about 10 minutes or so, and I don't know what's going to happen after that. So let's be quick. I am talking to you from 2027, and audiences have taken over complete control again. They are in charge of their own bubbles of information, their own bubbles of content. It has been a mess for several years, but my job at the FBAC is done now. No unwanted single-use content is getting access to the audiences anymore. And the FBAC was shut down last year. Which is a good thing, of course. But if you still want to have access to your audiences, then you have to act now and you have to start your sustainable marketing strategy right now. That's also why I've been searching for this wormhole to get you this message. But don't worry, I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you by adding 6 words to your marketing vocabulary. And those 6 words can be life-changing. So, the first word... Oh, are we still there? Are we still there? Okay, steady. Okay. So, the first word you would like to add is audience. Because in the future we don't talk about target groups anymore. A target group is created from the perspective and the goals of the sender, whether the target groups want it or not. That's why we started to use the word audience. An audience can decide for itself if it wants to be your audience or not. I can remember a poster back in the days that said, "I'm a target group to many, but an audience to only a few." I think you must be able to download it somewhere in your near future. The second word you have to start using is evergreen content. And you can learn from the ones who already know for decades. And no, they're not in marketing yet. Well, not in your time at least. The experts you can learn from are the creators of films and series. They know how to create evergreen content. You know, in 2027, people are still watching Friends and Seinfeld, attracting new audiences every year. And also Marvel is still creating new characters. And oh, well, you know, Captain America is a woman now. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to spoil that. But anyways, these creators of films and series, they know how to tell a compelling story and how to retain an audience. Not because the audience is forced to watch it, but because they want to watch it. The third word that will help you is serial content. If you want to become part of your audience's bubble of content, you need more than one piece. It's a mission impossible to even think that you can create an audience with only one piece of content. Besides, you want your audience to be able to subscribe in any way possible, but audiences nowadays are really selective. If they think you're annoying or irrelevant, you'll just get blocked. So you have to work really hard and, well, with only one episode, your chances are low. And you know what else you can learn in this regard? Those creators of films and series, they never actually end their story, do they? They always add a cliffhanger. Ooh, I almost lost you there. Well, do you know why they always end with a cliffhanger? Because they know our brain needs closure to a story before it can get peace of mind. And to make sure that you want to start the next episode. So why did marketers in your time always create such round finished stories? Most of the time in a single version. But why would you give it all away in only one episode, one piece of content? It probably didn't benefit the quality either. So try to never ever finish your story in only one piece of content, one episode. And use referrals like previously in or in the next episode we'll dive into. That way your audiences know that there is more available. Number 4, the audience journey. Yes, that's right, we're talking about the audience journey nowadays. What content is relevant to your audience at what time and place? You could compare it to a wormhole. Find the right wormhole to your audience and stream relevant content to that specific time and date. Well, you might think that I'm only talking about video here, but people are streaming photos and articles and podcasts too. The only thing you have to remember from this is that you're actually creating a database of evergreen content. Evergreen content that is created independently from time and place. And that benefits your audience and your budget. Now that so many marketers have used the audience journey to calculate what content resonates within their audiences, the total amount of content waste has declined severely. And you can already start using it too, because the audience journey was already explained in this book from 2020 called Binge Marketing. Okay, only 2 more words to add. I think we're going to make it in time. Okay, so the first one, or actually number 5, is the plot summary. What if your brand was a television series? What would it be about? You can compare that to the back flap of a DVD box. Oh, I'm sorry, you're way past that too, aren't you? Well, then have a look at IMDb. The summary of a series, what is it about? And then create one for your brand. That is a plot summary. And then every piece of content, every episode has to fit in that plot summary. And the last word is showrunner. Think and act like a showrunner. A showrunner for a series at a streaming service, because they don't want you to create the news for today. They want you to build upon a database of episodes that can be watched or better binged for years. So no subscriber feels like unsubscribing at any moment. And you can do the same thing for your brand content. Yes, I hear you. You think you don't have a compelling story to tell. Well, let me make one thing very clear. If you're not passionate about your brand or your product or your content, then you won't even make it to 2027. But if you use all your creativity and you search through the database of streamers like Netflix and Disney and Prime, but also the ones with the greatest branded content like Bytes.com, still a startup in your time, then I'm sure you will find a way to reshape your story and to find a story that is based on the shared interests of your brand and your audience. And you'll make it. you'll make it to 2027. So those were the 6 words you'll have to add to your vocabulary. Audience, evergreen content, audience journey, serial content, plot summary, and showrunner. And then there is one last really, really important thing that I have to share with you. Oh no, oh no, oh no. It's going to implode. I have to get out of here. I'm sorry, I'll try to find another wormhole in the near future. I'm gonna get out of here, but act now!
What a demonstration, Carlijn. Obviously, it's not the first time that I've seen these 19 minutes, but it makes me smile every time. It makes me think every time. It triggers ideas. I think the real word is a demonstration of how storytelling works. And as you have been already in recorded form, audible for everyone for the past 19 minutes, if you allow me, I would like to first move to Sonja to start this deep dive on storytelling. And for our participants, for the audience, we're roughly going to cover it, broken up in 3 buckets. One is really understanding storytelling. How does it work? Then working with storytelling. How do you do that? Methodologies, etc. And thirdly, how to embed it in your organization and how to, once you understand it, how to help others understand it and join your storytelling marketing journey. So with that, maybe starting with the beginning, understanding and using also Carlijn's recording, Sonja, as an example, the benefits of storytelling. Why should we use storytelling in your experience?
That's a great question as an opener, really. And I think storytelling is using narratives, isn't it, to communicate a message. And the benefit is that people feel something. So, watching Carlijn's movie there, there's an emotion involved in it, and the reason it works so well. And I was just thinking as I was watching this, I've seen it before, but it's great to see it again, Carlijn, is that it has all the elements of story. It's got a character. It's got, was it Mark J. Connor, the marketing strategist, and it's he's got a problem. He's got a massive problem. Beautifully illustrated by Carlijn. He meets a guide who better than Carlijn Postma, who gives him a plan. Sustainable marketing, evergreen content, quality content, a good story. And that causes him to act and helps him avoid failure. And it ends in success. If he follows this plan, he gets audience trust. So, I remember that because of the way it was told by Carlijn. If you'd just given me a straight factual description of it, I wouldn't have done. But I felt something, and that makes me remember and the message connect. That's why you use it, because it gets to the heart in a way that other, marketing ideas don't.
So a story is an instrument to carry information, to make it memorable, to structure it, to link it in your head. Is there anything in neuromarketing or other real sciences that explain how this works in either of your experiences? Carlijn, maybe?
Yeah, well, I've been reading up in Thinking Fast and Slow from Kahneman, and I think this is an example of what he says. If you, the human brain is lazy. We don't. It's just what it is. We just we need help, and the first thing is it's lazy. So everything we hear is going in and out, and if we repeatedly hear it, or we can connect it to other things that are already in our brains, then it connects better. And I think with storytelling, you're using all those neurons, or I don't know how they call it. I'm not really a specialist in that, but I was really triggered by that book and everything about it. So I think that's also why it works with a story.
Exactly. Thinking fast and slow. Yeah, I think we've all seen it from our youth, from our childhood days. We all love stories, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And it harks right back to that, doesn't it? Just watching a film of Carlijn's, it's exactly the same.
Yeah, exactly. So all the elements, and we're going to dive into that, of a good story help you memorize it, link it, land it in your brain in a way, making it accessible, interesting, attractive, etc. at the same time, if we talk with marketeers about storytelling, I think there's are also a lot of misunderstandings. Do you recognize that as well? Do you have any examples of that maybe that you hear in practice when you talk about with clients about storytelling?
I think, it's a very used word, more and more so here in the UK. I'm sure it's the same, around Europe as well. But, I think, people have grabbed it, but they're telling the wrong stories a lot of the time. So often it's an internal story. It's a story of the business. It's not the customer's story, the audience's story. And I think that's the main thing that I see when I see it wrong. It's like, yes, you've grabbed it. This is fantastic. You put all this creativity in, but it's the wrong story a lot of the time. Yeah. As Carlijn said at the end of that film, I think you've got to find something at the intersection between, your business's world and the customer's world. And often it skews too far towards the business's world and not enough in terms of the context and what the customer needs and wants.
So
I think that's exactly what it is. What you say, they're telling their own story instead of well, switching into what does your audience need for a story. And of course, you can talk about yourself. That's not a real big problem. But I think the biggest problem is the fact that we're coming from advertising and marketing, which says shout as loud as you can about your brand, and from that to storytelling, it tells the wrong story, probably.
Yeah. So you could tell many stories, and some resonate, and some don't resonate, or could even, trying to think about something, have an adverse effect, like hate your brand.
Yeah, or just, ignore it in favor of something that's, going to connect with people better. And I think, one thing, I'm sure you've seen this as well, but ending a story with a call to action to buy something just ruins it, really, doesn't it? It's much more subtle than that, the link between storytelling and a sale.
Don't be Mark, as Carlijn would put it, would probably. We're talking here about a few fails and pitfalls in using storytelling for marketing purposes. Do you have any other examples that you've seen and that we should share with our audience today about pitfalls, fails, wrong use of storytelling?
I think it's more the subtleties within it, which I see in my work, of people struggling to get to the right story, I guess. And one of those is around, and again, this comes down to audience. Who is the character? Who is the audience? And when I see in much larger companies, what happens is it's hard for them because they've got so many different types of audience they deal with. Who do you pick? And so that's it's a really hard job for particularly a larger, sort of more complex business to do. Exactly. To come to some alignment on the right character to land your story on.
We're definitely going to talk about that when we talk about how to use it. But I think what you're also referring to is trust. We talked about trust when we prepared to this session. And I think you have this, what is it called? The trust equation, of which we have a visual that we're going to put on screen. Is that what you could highlight and illustrate here as an instrument?
Sure, and this comes from a book by Charles H. Green, and it was the first business book I ever bought, I think, which helped me. I love this book, but trust is everything in business, as you all know. But he feels that trustworthiness can be boiled down into an equation, and it is this. So, if you want to create trust in your business, in your brand, in yourself, there's some important elements. There's credibility. That is that you have the skills, and the ability to do the job that you want to do. There's reliability, which is doing what you say you're going to do when you're going to do it. And then there's this strange word in a business context, which is intimacy. Mm-hmm. And I think this is where storytelling comes in so well. So, to build trust in somebody, you have to see their human side. You have to connect emotionally with them. And this is one of the things that story, if used properly in a business, can bring into the equation. But interestingly, you'll see below that, all of those can be destroyed by self-orientation. That's the S. The S factor is huge. And this again goes back to what Carlijn was saying a minute ago. What I was talking about is around which story are you telling? Is it your own internal story? Are you talking about yourself the whole time? Or are you telling the customer's story, a story the customer will actually align to? So I think, if you think about the ultimate aim of everything we're trying to do in terms of our marketing activities, it's to build trust with the right people so that they love our brands, refer our brands, be loyal customers and take action for us and buy from us. And, storytelling is a fabulous tool to build intimacy, into that process, to show the humanity, connect emotionally with people. But it has to be the right story. It has to be a story that the customer connects with. It's not just talking all about yourself.
Yeah.
It's an interesting tool. I
Yeah,
hope you like it.
I think
It's really useful.
It's an interesting equation, and while we have it here on the side next to me, maybe have Carlijn and Sonja both in view here. Carlijn, could we apply this formula to you? I mean, you're teaching in Cleveland, but it's also about the brand Carlijn as an expert, probably. So the story is trustworthy because it's credible, it's reliable. There's intimacy because it's a real story, it's humans, and it's not about yourself, so divided by 1 and not by 0. Does that work like that?
It's hard to to use the equation on yourself while
On
the
the
self-orientation is one of the issues.
Yes.
But I think it's I love that equation, by the way, because everything that storytelling needs is in the equation. It's
Yeah.
and also I think it's also intimacy, as you called it, the last letter of it. It's intimacy, it's emotion, it's everything that you can connect with, and that's something we need to marketers need to add it to their stories. And I think that's something. But we're just at the start of this whole transition. If I'm correct, I think so.
Yeah, I think it's nice to
There's so much going on.
to broaden that word and the meaning of the word intimacy to making it human, recognizable, personal, real. I guess it's in that field. Before we move more to the how and the mechanics of storytelling, a question that pops up in my mind: most stories that I've seen always end well, most of them, apart from Game of Thrones, I believe. Does business storytelling needs to end well? We're in the business of positivity as marketeers.
Well, I don't think so. Actually, I no.
No?
I read a word. I don't know where I read it, but they call it the Disneyfication of stories, and I think it's. Well, we learned that it should end well, and that's also, I believe, that scares marketers, maybe, because if you have to tell an authentic story, what still is one of the big issues or things in storytelling and content marketing. I believe that it does not have to end well. You can just as well end with that cliffhanger where everything is collapsing, and then it triggers people. You're going to use storytelling to attract audiences because it's not because you are failing, but because they recognize the drama that you're explaining or what you're expositioning in your story.
That's so interesting. I think that sort of messy failure is so compelling, and true. And I was thinking about the best one of the best events I've attended, and we were told we could only tell messy, case studies with an element of failure in them, and it was the most compelling conference I've ever been to. And the people from Facebook, Salesforce, all over the place telling these stories with real passion. The audience were rapt, and they learned so much. So it's a scary place, isn't it, for business to admit failure? But when you do, then you connect. That's everybody connects with that, don't they?
Yeah.
In whatever form of life. So
So
risky one, potentially internally, but a really compelling one.
there must be an element of emotion, a real human emotion, and that might even be something scary, but it can contribute to the credibility and relationship of your brand with your audiences. Let's look a little bit at the mechanics. If you would start as a marketeer with storytelling, you have not used it at all, or you think you haven't used it at all. What is the first step to take? Either of you, who would like to take that one? Where do you start?
I can start with the answer because it's part of the whole binge marketing methodology. how to start with binge marketing or how to start with telling your story is try to translate your brand story into the scenario of a great television series. So
Wow.
what if your brand was a television series? What would it be about? Who is your main character? What genre are we talking about? What themes can we recognize? And I believe if you can translate your brand into the scenario of a television series, then that's number one to start with. And maybe it sounds easy, but I always say it's like writing your scription for a university
Your
or
thesis.
I don't know how to. Yeah,
Thesis,
your thesis. Yeah. Thank you. But you start writing and you go back again and you write and you go back again. And I think this is the same thing. Who is your main character? Does it still fit your whole story? And if you have your story, does it connect to your audience? So that's why it's a process you have to go through. But the first thing is try to translate it into the scenario of a TV series.
Yeah, before we ask this to Sonja's view on this as well, I think if I listen correctly, here are two elements. First of all, trying to write that television script for your brand or your company, but also in the process, start with it. You know you won't have it right immediately, but do it several times and it will grow as a skill. Those are two elements I think that you addressed there. Is that correct, Carlijn?
Yes, that's part of it, but also if you've written it and you're working your way through, because what are you going to do with this plot summary? It is I always call it the brief for all agencies or internally for people to work with it. And so you have to create episodes that fit this scenario, the episodes that fit the television series. And if it doesn't, because there are new things you have to add to your campaigns, for example, to your episodes, then you have to reshape it. But once you start and you reshape it, I think it can only start well that way.
Well, we'll elaborate on it. You said it sounds easy. For me, it sounds extremely daunting. I would not really know where to start, to be completely honest. Sonja, before we elaborate with Carlijn on what she just mentioned, we would ask you to start with a storytelling exercise for a brand. Where would you start?
I think, Carlijn, I think that's a fantastically creative exercise, and I can imagine, the fun that people would have internally if you gave them that, as a really good sort of brainstorming session with a bunch of marketers. I think it would light up their lives, to be able to do that. So I think that's a genius way of starting, if I'm honest. I think, it is hard in organisations to get people to get started on this. I've tried various things in various ways, but one of them is just listening to the way your customers talk about your company and your business, and if you listen hard enough, you'll know that they tell stories. So I think sometimes the best way is just to start by listening. So ask a selection of people who are engaged with your business to describe who they are, who you are, and what you do, and you'll find that they'll tell stories for you. And you can use that. I know we're going to go on a little bit in a minute, Bert, and talk about how to get buy-in. But you can start finding stories and start getting engaged in the whole storytelling process by doing a bit of a listening process first, and just realizing that other people out there are doing that for you, and that will give you some ingredients, I think, to bring into your own stories.
Exactly. You're trying to gather the stories that are out there already, or maybe in a raw and not refined or polished existence and form, but that's then to the master storytellers to really turn that into real and extremely good stories. Let's have both of you on screen together and talking about those mechanics of storytelling, not so much about the organization but the storytelling process. Let me challenge you. If I would have a brand, let's say something really, really complicated here in the area, industrial companies, industrial, B2B, of course. and we sell climate installations for hospitals. Would you be able to come up with a proposal of a storytelling approach in their marketing to their facility manager customers? And then what would be the steps, really, the 1 minute masterclass in storytelling, how you would address and start that process? And please jump on each other's stories to see how you would work with that. Who starts?
I'll go if you like, Carlijn. That's a lovely complex example to start off with. Thank you for that one. So climate installation in selling climate installation to hospitals, is that right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Okay, good. So a lovely B2B example. And you want storytelling as part of the marketing strategy. And I think, again, thinking of the approach about listening first. If you listen to your customers, you'll find that what they're after is stories of transformation.
Yeah.
So, your job in that B2B market is to tell those transformation stories, the success stories, the customer story of how they've gone and how you've helped them. So you make sure that you identify the right characters. So you've got to know your customer really well for that, your ideal customer. Again, as I said before, that's sometimes hard, but and you've got to understand the problem that you're solving them. I'm not going to be able to riff on that one straight away without knowing that industry. And the guide, and you've got to give them a plan. So that comes down to what is your process, and even that can tie some people in knots. What's the thing, the how-to that you've got that's different from everybody else. What are you helping them avoid? But I think, collecting those stories of transformation, you call them case studies in the old world, didn't you? But that makes them sound, that makes them something far duller, I think, than a transformational success story, which is what customers are after. So they can put themselves in those shoes and see how it's helpful and understand, with some emotion, how this is going to apply to them. So I'd be looking for that. Carlijn, over to you.
Yeah, well, I think you can go several ways, every way actually. It's in a hospital, and have a look at Netflix and every series. There are so many romantic hospital or drama series. You can go that way. But if your job to be done, because that's always what we start with, what do you need to establish with your content? And if that is, for example, thought leadership, we're the best organization for, it's such a hard business, climate
control installations for hospitals.
Exactly,
and we're aiming, you sell probably one of those installations every 20 to 30 years, and in the non-buying years, the 19 or 29 years, facility managers are not interested in your brand or your story. The thing is hidden in the attic, and that should always work.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, but still, I think that's the wormhole case. You need to be right there at the moment that it is interesting. And I think, especially with this kind of product, it's not something you decide today and you have it on your doormat tomorrow. So you start with, explaining what it is, for example. But the first question is, of course, are you the party in the market to go to? Are you the expert? And then think about if that's the case. If you are, then maybe you should put your engineers in as a main character in your series.
Okay.
Because they are the best persons to explain what it's about.
That's where you find the intimacy from the equation.
Yeah, but I also agree with what Sonja said. You also have to know what stories are out there. What does the audience want? And that's where two worlds, I think, have to be compared to each other. Because on one hand, you have to decide, what is the story I'm going to tell? Is it going to be this romantic drama series like Grey's Anatomy? I don't know if they've done it somewhere in the attic with this installation beside, but then we're talking about product placement. But anyways, the other hand is of course more documentary. Why is it so important for hospitals to have this installation, and who is the best character to explain it?
Yeah. So
then you can go with the engineers, the experts.
So also for our audience, documentary is an example of storytelling.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's people on the ground, the installers of these climate systems, there may be some kind of journaling that they can do, stories that they can have from the ground, what worked, what didn't work, I'd be fascinated. I mean, I bet they've got stories to tell, within the hospital environment.
War stories from the climate engineering trenches, something like that.
I'd be interested. And if you were an engineer in a hospital, who would connect with, the difficulties and the struggles and the successes that they've had, I would imagine that would be compelling, actually.
Okay, wonderful. We're talking about the mechanics of storytelling. We passed about understanding the why and the importance and the potentials, the benefits. During preparation, you also talked about methodologies like the hero journey, etc. And I know that's an episode or maybe even a 2-day conference in itself, potentially. But could you really extremely condensed explain how models, for example, hero journey, work in building stories for marketing?
Who do you want to know from?
Well, I mean, up to both of you. Who's first?
Well, I know. I use the hero's journey 2 ways. I use it for to explain how a story can be built with this story arc, and it starts with nothing going on really. Then something happens. The main character has to do some challenge or something, and then there is a resistance. He doesn't want to go into this new world, and well, there's, as you said, you can build a 2-day conference about it. But I think there are some elements that are really important in that, and that is, for example, the challenge. Every story needs this challenge or drama, where what makes people move.
Yeah, maybe to interrupt you, I maybe should have asked first. Could you describe the essence of the hero journey model in 4 lines? Because we talk about challenges, etc.
Yeah, this is a drama. Perfect. No, it's well, the hero's journey is a model used in Hollywood. Well, actually, no, I have to explain it a little bit.
Go ahead.
More than 4 lines. Sorry. The hero's journey is based on a book of Joseph Campbell, and he found out that every story in history and in fairy tales, in religion, every story can be divided into like 12 or sometimes 17 steps. It's a structure. It's a storytelling framework. And this framework is not only in a Western world that we can recognize it. It's global. It's human, I guess. I don't know how to explain that in short, but
it's universal.
It's universal, yes. And so this Joseph Campbell found this story, this framework, and it is used in Hollywood for every blockbuster movie. And it says everything starts with the main character, nothing really going on. Then there is this whole adventure, the quest of this search to develop himself or herself into a more mature person. And I think this structure is really helpful if you want to start with storytelling. But that's only one thing you can use it for. I also flipped the whole hero's journey into the audience journey.
Okay.
So if you would translate this hero's journey into your audience's journey, then you can start with what is your audience? What is the ordinary world of your audience? What is it doing at the moment that you're not relevant? What is this ordinary world? So I'm a mechanic in a hospital, nothing really going on. But then we have to, cut budgets, for example. So is one of the possibilities the whole climate system. And if you just add all those steps into the quest of your audience, then you have ammunition to create this series, to create content that is relevant at the right time and moment for your audience.
Yeah.
And as I said, 4 lines is a drama, is impossible. But I think it's the the model proved itself already in storytelling, and I think it's the story of your audience that you're explaining if you use it for your audience's story.
Absolutely. What we'll do is on the Content Marketing World Europe.com website, we will in the show notes of this episode include some links that you will provide us with for people who would like to read further on that. So the hero journey is one methodology for both of you. Any other methods, structures, frameworks that can be used for storytelling? Sonja, anything that comes to mind for you from your side?
I love, there's a book by Donald Miller, and it's called Building a Story Brand. And I loved this book when I first read it. And I think he's got a 6-part framework, I think it is, which again, I was using when I was thinking about Carlijn's film. I was just looking at the different elements of it from then. So, the framework's pretty similar in some ways to what we've been describing, but it starts with a main character. And I really get what you say, Carlijn, about making sure that is the audience as the hero, not anything else. And that character has a really gnarly problem to solve. So you've got to be very clear on that. They meet a guide in that order. So that is, you, the business potentially, or somebody within that. And that guide gives them a plan. And the plan helps them avoid failure. And I think, again, we talked a little bit about that, but making sure that sort of failure story or potential for failure story is in there is really important. And that plan causes them to act, and it ends normally in success, some form of transformation. So it's those elements, which I look at when I'm thinking about a story for a business. It's a fantastic book. I know you were going to give some links at the end, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
I really recommend that. The interesting piece, and Carlijn, you'll be absolutely on this, but he talks a lot about the one-liner, about making sure that you've got, as a business, your one-liner sorted, which links with your
plot summary.
Maybe. That's it. So that really connected with me when you were talking about that.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe one more element when we talk about the mechanics and how it works, and then move to, we asked you to share maybe a few examples that you worked on or that you have seen that we could use to test drive, basically, or illustrate all these methodologies and structures and elements that we have talked about in the past few minutes. But before we go there, let's talk about visual storytelling. I mean, storytelling can be orally, it can be written down. We also talked about visual storytelling, and there's a visual that we could have on the screen here. Sonja, this is something that you would like to include here. Is that something that you could talk us through roughly?
Absolutely love to. I mean, I was thinking about the most powerful content that I've created in my career, and this is with my business partner Sharon Tanton when we run the School of Valuable Content now. But this is a way of describing the content marketing journey, if you like, and the pitfalls that people have on the way, and the success, what will bring them success. But we created it because we were having fun in the office one day, and we said, we had all these different stories of, from businesses around the world. What happens if, content marketing was actually a real place? And we had a brilliant designer, Lizzie, working with us, who created this. But it's a visual that allows you to tell stories, and it allows people, customers, you take it into a room with customers and they tell their own stories. Where are you now? Where are you on the map? Where have you been? Where do you want to go? And they'll tell you that story. So I think, as well as film, as well as written stories, visual tools, simple sort of graphics can be so powerful, and they can tell a story in their own right and enable you to, get stories out of people or create a narrative, through what you do. So maps are brilliant, aren't they? It's a map, is a journey, it's an adventure, it's a quest, it's all those sort of things. So I think if you can create one for your business in terms of your, what you're trying to do for your audience, it's just a brilliant storytelling tool. So, stories you can get out of people in various ways, can't you?
Yeah,
But this is
yeah,
just
absolutely. And of course, Carlijn in her presentation demonstrated that as well. Carlijn, you shared a case from a Dutch bank with us, and the agency who worked on that was kind enough, and we thank them here, NS5, to add English subtitles. I think it's a 2-minute trailer, 2.5-minute trailer. Is it a good idea to run that one, and then after that see if what we talked about is recognizable in that case? Is that a good idea?
Yeah, let's do
Okay, let's have it. ABN Bank.
Er is een tijd van komen en er is een tijd van gaan. En mijn tijd om te gaan is gekomen. Ik heb er altijd van gedroomd om dit bedrijf, onze familietraditie, aan een van jullie door te kunnen geven. Aan een echte Berestein. Aan één van jullie.
Nou, kunnen we eindelijk met pensioen?
De wereld staat in brand. Of waait weg. We moeten nu wat doen. Groener, duurzamer.
Oh, ze heeft een keynote gemaakt.
We moeten ons richten op de toekomst. We gaan moderniseren.
Waarom verkoop je die boel niet gewoon? Pak je rust.
Dit kan zo gewoon niet langer.
Hij maakt het bedrijf kapot.
Ik geef geld om geld!
Berestein is van Berestein. Dat zal het altijd blijven. Waag het niet.
Waarom gaan we het iets anders maken? Iets duurzaams.
Als jij ze nou de geld weg wil gooien.
Data is het nieuwe goud. We bouwen een platform.
Echt, een platform bouwen? Nee, toch?
En met een paar echt slimme koppen, Roger, ligt de wereld straks aan onze voeten.
Wat wil je doen dan, Bobby?
Nee, hij maakt het bedrijf kapot!
Wat een pretentieus gelul! Geld, geld, geld!
Ik weet genoeg.
That is definitely something than the odd, predictable ad about we can fund and finance your bank or company. So exciting. Carlijn, talk us through this and try to link to what we talked about in the past 20, 25 minutes about the value and the benefits of storytelling and the elements, the structure, the mechanics of storytelling that we've seen here.
Yeah, I think first of all, I'd like to start with what we are seeing here is something that I hope and I think we will see a lot more in the future, because this is storytelling. This is a series. I don't know if you've seen the series Succession, or if you haven't, just start with it, because it's a little bit based on that. It's a huge series with lots of big audiences. It's really big. So we know that the topics resonate with the audience, and what they did here is create this. I also refer to it as the trailer, because I really hope there are going to be episodes based on the topics that they mention here, because I would like to see that. This is brand storytelling with topics that has the drama in it, but also refer and resonate with their audiences. And if I understand correctly, this is the trailer that does not necessarily now refer to an episode about the topic. Well, not an episode in video, let's say it like that, but an episode with a white paper or with an interview or something. So this is the trigger for audiences to start looking, to start watching this series. And I think this is only the start of what we'll see a lot more, because of this streaming war that we're seeing. Where do we go as a brand with our content, with our long form content, if all the viewers are going to Netflix and the audiences are disappearing into the streaming services? So we have to find our way through it. and find out a new way to the audiences. And that's why I love this whole series that they created, well, the trailer in this case, because I think this is the idea of how to attract and retain an audience on topics that you want to discuss with them.
Yeah.
And you can just, if they created it, I think they can even sell it to Prime or something.
It's really interesting two angles. You just explained the potential of expanding this, and with that expanding your audience, building your relationship with your audience, and basically as a bank become a friend, which is a challenge in itself. Also the way it's used right now, an extremely condensed storytelling format to be the jump board for other types of content, white papers, etc. So interesting to see that it can be used in extremely condensed and single episode format as well.
Yeah, and some other thing. I think the courage to use fiction as a bank is a great one too.
Yeah,
because you don't see it. If we're talking about content marketing in I think globally, universal, we're talking about authentic stories. People, we have to relive, we have to use clients, we have to create, we have to get the stories from real clients, for example. But I think fiction has so much more in it.
Yeah.
And this is one example, but I also refer a lot to KLM's The Journey. It's a podcast.
Yeah.
It's based on true stories, but it's created as a complete hero's journey, actually, from one traveler.
Yeah, exactly. Sonja, some words on that. We're entering the last 10 minutes, and we also want to talk about buy-in, etc., and a few audience questions. But maybe a quick reflection on what you just saw from ABN Bank, from your perspective.
Yeah, thinking about it, 'cause I worked in an ethical bank for a year as the head of content design going back a few years. And, this is Nationwide Building Society. People in the UK will know it. They're brilliant, and they use storytelling really effectively. I haven't seen fiction in the same way, but they've used it through, making their customers the heroes. They're brilliant at, in the adverts that they do, through the content that they share, and they've even used poetry. I mean, that's a different form of story, if you like, in some ways, specially commissioned poems around some of the themes that they feel is important. So, it really cuts through. It's a fantastically different approach, to get through to financial services customer. So absolutely brilliant example. I love that.
Exactly. I really like that. It cuts through. That's probably something that we're all after, getting that impact. Before we move to the buy-in question, how to sell storytelling, with all its complications and challenges to senior people, budget holders, CEOs, CFOs, etc. Let's move to a few short audience questions that I have right here. Is storytelling more useful for B2B or B2C? Sonja, any thoughts on that?
I think it's absolutely universal. Personally, I think if we're all humans, whether we're
human to human.
So both. There's no difference at all.
Yeah, and I guess we've seen the examples, and even your challenge to talk about something dull like a climate installation brought some results to the table already. How does storytelling relate to the Hero Hub hygiene structure?
That's a good question.
Or Carlijn? Sonja? Carlijn? No? Sonja?
Well, I think it's Hero Hub. I think you start with the hero story. I think the example of ABN AMRO is the hero story. But then you could use those characters to go one layer down and go to the hub and afterwards the hygiene content. But I would prefer to have one series, one series where the characters can take people from hero to hub to hygiene, or maybe the themes. It's just what you decide, or what your story needs. But
Sonja, you were just starting your answer and I cut you off. Apologies.
Okay, I obviously like the hero hub hygiene model, but I was really struck by this lady called Margaret Magnarelli, who used to work at monster.com. I don't know if you've seen her. Brilliant content side, she's fantastic. But she has a slight twist on that, which is the how, wow, now framework,
Ah.
for your content marketing, which I really like. And I was thinking about that with a storytelling lens on. And I think story cuts through everything. I mean, something like that trailer will cost, that is definite wow content, which has a wow budget potentially attached to it. But it doesn't have to cost, the earth. But, absolutely, the sort of episodal, serial storytelling elements, needs to be a part of that. But the how stuff too. I mean, good teachers use stories, to get their points across. So I think it's an element that we can bring into that more sort of helpful content, if you like. And then you've got the now stuff, which is, how I translate that would be what's going on in the business now. Tell us stories about your people. Make it real, make it human. All of those things. What now? That storytelling comes in there too. So maybe that you put different budget elements around each of them. You find different ways through in those different elements. But I think storytelling cuts through all of it. It doesn't mean that storytelling is everything at every point, every piece of content you ever create for a business. I was thinking about what I did for Nationwide in the content design field. That's around the products on the website. You need really clear, short information to get people through, to take the I don't know, the application journey for a credit card, for example. You don't need stories at every point in that journey, so it's not everywhere.
Don't overdo it.
Yeah, it's a different content job, but it's relevant at the right time. But when you're looking at your content marketing, bringing that story element in my view, is hugely important.
Yeah. Well, thank you. You're almost clairvoyant, because there was one question I had here as well. Should or could you use storytelling for every piece of content? So that question is answered as well. A question here, how to start small? We've seen these, I mean, Carlijn, you invested highly in making this an impressive talk with a studio. And of course, you're in that business. We saw the bank. How can you start small on a small budget with storytelling? Any thoughts from either of you? Carlijn, maybe?
Yeah, I always say that the whole approach is the same. If you're a big bank, you've got big KPIs, and if you're a freelancer, you've got smaller KPIs. But the whole strategy, the whole process can be the same. What are you going to explain? Who is the main character in the freelance role? Maybe it's you, maybe it's your customer, but also what am I going to talk about? And I think what the pitfall that most smaller businesses fall into is the fact that they start with something and then there's something new, and there's no red thread throughout all the content. And I think if you just start with this summary, what is my story about? And once something comes along, you can just check if it fits to your story. And if it does, then you can write an article about it, for example. It doesn't have to be video. It can also be this article or just an Instagram story. But I think the methodology is the same.
Yeah, exactly. We have 2 more minutes. A real fast one on getting buy-in. Imagine that after this and some reading, we'll get back to that. As a marketeer, you want to start with storytelling, but you have a senior boss who's not a marketeer, who didn't attend to this session. How do you get buy-in? Any advice from either of you?
This is such a big thing. And because as marketeers, we read all this stuff and we know the power of it, but we've got to convince people, in higher up in the organization to take a punt on a new approach. And sometimes that's really hard, and I know from my experience, there's a lot of the work for marketers is, doing that sort of buy-in, getting across an organization. So, the one thing that I found, and this is going back to what I said before, is to ask for help from your customers, really. So, if you go through a process of listening and getting feedback from your customers, you'll find out what sort of content they want and what connects with them. And they will tell you that stories is what they're after. Stories is what connects. And again, I've got masses of examples of this from my work, in terms of people saying, very senior people, just give me please, what we're after is those stories of transformation. Share the stories of, so and I can then use those in my organization to sell it on to somebody else, so
exactly.
Get some help and look at it from the outside, and your people inside the business will listen to your customers, probably over and above listening to people within the organization. It's a brilliant tool for getting buy-in. So
thanks. Your buy-in tip, Carlijn?
Yeah, I don't think it's storytelling is not your goal. It's well, if you just start with the result, what does it do? You have your marketing goals. Just have a look at Mark Day Connor. He has to start with he has to deliver on his sales target. So how you do that, and I honestly believe, and I think we've spent the last hour and 15 minutes talking about it, that storytelling can help you build an audience, and from that audience, if your audience trusts you, it's way more easy to sell eventually, or maybe multiple times, to that same audience. So your goal could be to build this audience and get results for your marketeers.
Yeah, exactly. Strong point. We have come to the end of this session, but one bonus question for both of you, for those in our audience that would like to do some further reading or listening or watching. The best resource about storytelling, Sonja, yours?
Ooh, well, I love that book, the Donald Miller book. But the other one I really like is a lady called Bernadette Jiwa. Have you come across her? She's written several books on stories, and her website and blog is The Stories of Telling, I believe it is.
Okay.
So I absolutely love her approach.
We will include that definitely in the show notes. And your information source of preference for this? Carlijn?
Yeah, well, of course, everybody needs to know about this hero's journey. It's the hero with 1,000 faces from Joseph Campbell. But there is a 7-page PDF from Christopher Vogler. It's like the summary, so that's also comes in handy.
Exactly. And two books that
what I also would like to refer to is brandstorytelling.tv, because that has examples from brands and marketers in storytelling. It's all about authentic storytelling, not fiction, but still, I think it's a good way to start.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me add two books that I would really like to advise on. One is called The Storytelling Animal by Jonathan Gottschall, who really, like you said, Carlijn, from history, how dictators, religions and marketeers have used storytelling. And the brilliant book 99 Ways to Tell a Story by Matt Madden, who has one story and every page is a different story the same story from a different perspective. So we put that in the show notes. And with that, Carlijn and Sonja, on behalf of all of us, thanks a lot. I mean, it shows that I'm late with closing this, that we have much more to discuss, and it's probably not the last session, but thank you both so much. And of course, it will be my role to tell the audiences that if they want more information about storytelling, apart from these books, they could go to carlijnpostma.com and to bingemarketing.thinkific.com, and we'll put that in the show notes as well. And of course, for Sonja, to sonjanisson.co.uk and to the www.valuablecontentschool.co.uk. Thank you, Sonja. Thank you, Carlijn. This is the end of episode 1 of Content Marketing World Europe 365. In 2 weeks from now, the 26th of January, a complete new episode with a complete new topic. You'll have AJ Huisman, the other half of Content Marketing Fast Forward, as your facilitator, and the topic will be podcasting. So with that, thanks a lot and see you in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.